You are listening to the sounds of TCVFM, Traditional Christian Values Radio.
Dr. Sams has published 3 books on marriage and family, and they are Making Marriage Meaningful, Insights and Secrets from a 40-Year Marriage. It is based on the marriage experience of the Sams family with in-depth research on successful relationship strategies. And he also Paradigms of Marriage, 10 Ways to Ensure and Restore Marital Happiness, a Christian Perspective, Family and Faith, on Marriage and Family Issues. So again, we have Dr. Sams here in the studio, and he's going to present in summary form some principles and some basic things that you need to know about having a successful marriage. After that, we're going to take questions if anyone wants to call in, and we also have questions that can be sent via email to Omar, that's OMAR at TCVFM.com. So if you send in those questions, we'll go ahead and we will read as many as we can. We do have some questions that have already been submitted, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can after Dr. Sams finishes with his presentation. So again, here is Dr. Sams.
Thank you, Richard. Good evening, everyone, and I hope that this will be a pleasant occasion for all of us. I can't think of anything more important for us to contemplate if we are married than just how to succeed and how to grow our marriage. And so I'm very glad for the opportunity to share with you a few thoughts and hope that as you respond, we will be able to answer some of the questions you have. First of all, let me ask you a question. And perhaps I can throw this question to those in the studio as well. Just think for a moment of one word that you could use to describe why people get married. Not just you getting married, but why people get married. Why marriage? Can you think of one word that encapsulates that? And so I'm going to see if I can glean in a moment here from those in the studio, and then I want you to think about it. I won't be able to hear from you right now, but later on you can say that, or you can share that with me. But I'm going to share with you the one word I have come up with. Anybody here want to just share a quick word? What word?
One word
describe marriage.
That describes
Why do
marriage.
people get married?
Well, companionship.
Companionship, okay.
Hey, Richard, before you answer, I'm getting some text that you need to speak up a little bit more, but just come a little bit more closer to the mic, and that would be it.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, my word was companionship. Is that better, Omar?
That is better.
Okay.
All right. Companionship.
Okay, and my word for it is love.
Love, okay. Omar, you have a word for marriage? Why do people get married?
I would say belonged, because people do want to feel loved and wanted by someone special.
Great. All those answers are true. And I could not take anything from those answers except that I came up with a different word. Okay. And the interesting thing about the word I've come up with is simply this, that if you disagree with me when I tell you my answer, then perhaps I won't have much to say to you because all my books are based on it.
All right.
So it's my whole philosophy
Yeah.
of marriage I'm sharing with you. So my answer is one word. It is called happiness.
Happiness.
In other words, if you disagree with me, then I would like to hear in the feedback why you would. But I have not in my seminars had anybody saying they disagree. So here goes. Marriage is something that's fundamental to us. And the reason for that is that we seek happiness through marriage. Now, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, has said that happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. Now, if that is true, then everything in life that we do is to gain happiness. Nothing else that we do is an end in itself. Only happiness is an end in itself. Would you agree with that? If not, then you also would have challenge from the Bible itself, because there's a text in the Bible, which is Psalm chapter 16 and verse 11, and it says that God definitely seeks our happiness. Mm-hmm. And in the last book of the Bible, in Revelation, in chapter 21 and chapter 22, right at the end of the very Bible itself, it tells about marriage and how God seeks our happiness. So what I would like to say to you then is, if that is true, that happiness is what we seek, then I believe that getting married is a purpose that we seek to get the highest level of happiness in our lives. Apart from being a Christian and relating to God, there's no other level of happiness we will obtain, except as we form a relationship with a spouse and also to have children and build a family. That is what we seek. Therefore, if that is true, then when we do not obtain it, it is a tremendous disappointment. It dashes our hopes, our idea of how we should regulate our lives for the future. We need to fundamentally then figure out, how can we get the benefit out of marriage that will produce the happiness we seek? Here's another thing you need to consider before I say more about marriage, is simply this: that most of the people who get married do not spend the time to share with their spouse what their needs are to help them to attain that happiness. They do many other things and say many other things and share many other things, but they never stop to share, what do you want out of this relationship? What will make me happy in this relationship? Once you do that, then your spouse is in a position to spend his or her life seeking your happiness and also your own, because when you make your spouse happy, you will be happy. So what I would like to do now is to go into something I hope you follow me on for a moment. It will be a little bit technical, but not that much. So follow me a little bit here. We are living at a time in our era that we are in right now that is bequeathed to us from the 1970s. It started a little bit in the 1960s, but really came full bloom in the 70s and in the 80s. We are living now in a period when marriage at this time is bequeathed to us, and we can't do much about what is happening around us in this relationship. By that I mean, prior to this time, for the 2,000 years prior, or whatever time we want to look back, marriage had a particular framework. And that framework was called, a word we could give it is hierarchical or traditional. In that relationship, your grandparents and mine came into the marriage relationship understanding the framework of marriage. There's a father, a mother, and children, in that order. And when decisions were to be made, they would consult together, but the father usually had the last word. That was until the 1960s and 70s. Then marriage started to change. Now, I got married, my first marriage was in 1964. At that time, the marriage divorce rate was only 23% or so. 15 years later, by 1979-80, divorce rate in the United States of America and in Canada had escalated to over 50%. And in one case, it went to 52%. What caused that dramatic change, more than 100% increase in 15 years? Now, most of us who lived through it understand that, yes, there was a dramatic upheaval. And many ministers and marriage counselors and marriage therapists understood that a change had occurred. But I think the main issue that I've discovered in my research is that what marriage has become has been almost like a secret. I had studied books, read, and did marriage counseling for over 3 decades. And yet, I did not see this until I started to delve really into becoming a marriage educator and finding out what's going on with divorce rate. And in this research, I found that what marriage has become, it moved from a traditional marriage of a father, a mother, and children into a companionship relationship, meaning 2 people have equal authority in the relationship. And when you have 2 people having equal relationship, having equal say, all hell can break loose because nobody has the last word. And so when you're having problems in your marriage now, much of it is based on the environment in which we live, what society has done. You see, in the previous marriage relationship, there were boundaries by the community, boundaries by the law of the land. Various boundaries were protecting marriage. So it would be unlikely that a girl would go out and get pregnant, or there would be unfaithfulness in the relationship because it had consequences in the community. And in the law of the land, it was difficult to get a divorce. Today, all those barriers are removed. And you're on your own. The society does not protect you. Even the church does not protect you, because many people in the church are in the same situation that people around in the community are in. So we are all in the same boat now. How do we survive is the issue. And now that we have to deal with partnership relationship, we have to decide what is the key to help us to paddle our way through and become successful. And one of the most important things that we need to achieve is something that's called the skills in negotiation. If you are born with it or you acquired it, you are ahead of the game. But may God help you if you do not have skills in negotiation. Because what's going to happen is when you have an issue to deal with, all hell breaks loose. Each of you are going to want the outcome, and it's not possible. Now, let me say one more thing. I don't know. I hope I'm still within time, Omar.
Oh, yes.
All right. Here's what I'm going to share with you now, and I want you to listen to very carefully. Very, very important. In the previous marriage relationships, that is our grandparents and great-grandparents, in that relationship, 3 things were fundamental that kept them together. And they are compatibility, they are compromise, and also communication. Those 3. Those 3 kept them together. They sought to be compatible before they got married. And as a young preacher, that's what I used to preach to the young people. Make sure you're compatible. And then if things come up in the marriage, your parents would tell you, you need to compromise. And then you need to communicate. Those are the 3 basic concepts that kept marriages together then. Now, in our present form of marriage, those are the 3 things that create problem in the marriage and create divorce. And that may be shocking to you, but that's why I have seminars and they last several hours, because we have to explore those concepts. And we can see clearly how those concepts destroy the relationships in our current system. So what I'm trying to explain is simply this. Without knowledge, it is difficult for you to survive in the present relationship of marriage in the society in which we live. Without the skills to create accommodation in the relationship, it is very difficult to survive. So I think I'll stop there at this point, because you may have questions to ask, and then let's see if we can deal with some questions.
All right. So before this, we send it out where you could email in your question if you don't want to call, and a few people did that, and we have some question that I believe it's Richard. You going to read them or?
Yes, I'll read these questions. These questions were emailed in a little bit earlier. The first question is, Dr. Sams and Petula, what are the benefits of premarital counseling? What are the benefits of premarital counseling? Is it important or necessary to receive counseling?
Well, any information we can receive that's beneficial to us in preparation for marriage will be valuable. I think we'll all agree on that. Mm-hmm. However, I want to put a caveat on that. And the caveat is simply this. When you are getting in a relationship prior to marriage, most likely your brain is not working at full capacity. You have heard this saying, love is blind?
Yep.
Believe it. Believe it. Scientists have proven that certain hormones are released in the brain.
Okay.
And that it stultify certain aspects of the parts of the brain that deal with reasoning.
Right.
And so you are in a position where you are seeing but not seeing. In other words, your girlfriend or boyfriend at that point, mm-hmm. you are so in love that you can't really see the reality.
So that sounds like a mental issue right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where we are going here. So you're not in a position to judge. So what you are learning in that premarital counseling, Richard, mm-hmm. what they are learning in that premarital counseling
Not me, I'm already married.
You're I'm just saying what they are experiencing. Okay? What they're experiencing in that premarital counseling then is not of great significance because they are not rational. Right? So they learn something, but much of it will just pass through one side of the brain and come to the other side. Very little of it sticks. So it seems to me in my practice that the best option would be make sure after you're married and you are settled in a bit, make sure that you seek to learn how to get this marriage working.
Yeah. But doctor, let me ask you this. You talked about compatibility before, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't that premarital counseling help to decide whether you're compatible with each other or not?
Great question. But here's the thing. We are not taking up a topic tonight on compatibility, but there's much to explore there. Right. But I'll say this to you, because sometimes when you don't get a chance to explore something fully, people mm-hmm. leave with a half understanding of it. Let me see if I can help to answer that question. You see, what has happened to compatibility is simply this. In the previous form of marriage, mm-hmm. your grandparents, for example,
right.
They needed to be compatible as much as possible because once they are married, they are married.
Right.
And the form of relationship after that is set. Father has his role, mother has her role, children have their role.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So now compatibility is not as important.
Mm.
What you need now are skills to deal with your relationship.
Okay.
Sure, you need to have some fundamental significant relationships in the compatibility area. For example, I would say religion, for example, faith.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's better if you are of the same faith,
right,
simply because it will take that away as an issue.
Yes.
Right? So anything you can take away as an issue, you take it away. But it's not critical. Mm-hmm. Here's another point on that. And maybe my answer is a little too long, but let me stop at this one. Here's another issue. When you are dealing with compatibility, it is a myth. There's no such thing.
Wow.
There's no such thing as compatibility. The reason is, it's like a river, sir.
Okay.
You cannot jump in the same river twice. Okay?
Run that by me again.
All right. You cannot jump in the same river twice.
Okay.
Once you jump in a river, that water moves.
Okay.
Jumping in another river.
I got what you're saying.
All right. So we are all changing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And because of the society in which we live now, we are changing rapidly. We are being impacted in so many ways. You go to school, you get your education, and you are changing.
Yes.
One goes to school, one does not, or they go to different, and then our backgrounds start to come into play because we have certain likes and dislikes,
right.
And then we change even how we dress. So compatibility is a myth. What you really need is skills to deal with changes.
Okay, I have another question, and it looks like it's coming from the viewpoint of the wife. So I'm going to let Sister Sams read that one.
Okay. My husband and I have been married for 2 years. Been in a relationship 2 years prior to marriage. He has always been a goofy type, and I love that about him. But on many occasions, he purposely tries to pee me off.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, pushing all my buttons. Talking to him about it doesn't help. What can I do to get him to stop before I kill him?
Oh, my God.
That sounds like that might be Omar's wife. Is that anonymous? Is there a name on that?
No, anonymous.
I remove all the names.
It could be my wife for that matter.
Well, it's kind of hard to answer that because I just finished saying, in answering the previous question, that compatibility is highly overrated. Mm-hmm. And what happened to you before marriage, or you saw your spouse, you are not even seeing your spouse in reality as your spouse is, but rather you had some part of your brain shut off. And so you're not even seeing the faults and the problems or whatever. So he was just like that before.
Right.
But you didn't notice it.
Exactly.
You see? So now you have to figure out how to negotiate that with him.
How you can live with that.
Yes.
Because it's not going to go away.
It's not going to go away.
Right.
And the thing about it is, what you see before you get married only becomes bigger after marriage.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So don't go into it thinking
No.
change
Don't
it
think
or-
you're going to change the person. You may. We cannot change our personality, by the way.
Okay.
Scientists have told us that we cannot change our personality.
Okay.
We can, however, change our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So what you should do, not spend your time trying to change somebody's personality or your spouse's personality because they can't change it, even themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you are born, say, an introvert,
Okay.
you're going to likely live as an introvert. If you're born as an extrovert, you're likely going to live as an extrovert.
Right,
Have you been to a party and you see some people, life of the party, other people sit in a corner, never said anything?
Right.
Okay, so the personality of the person.
That's Richard right there.
That's it.
Touche.
Okay, so, however, what we are looking at here is that we can change our behavior. So if I know that my wife does not like a certain thing,
Okay.
and in my case, she thinks my voice is too loud in the house, right? Okay. I have been practicing this for how many years? How many decades?
Exactly.
Well, I think the same thing, and I'm your son.
There you go. So, but I have to do my best now to see how I can bring it down the best I can.
Right.
So that I can, because I know whenever I do that, she's annoyed.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So I don't want to let her live in a home where she's always annoyed. So I will make some adjustments there. She also should understand that I was in the military training in my youth, and I was sergeant. I had to give commands, so my voice is a certain voice, and I'm a preacher all my life.
Exactly.
So my voice has been my instrument all my life.
Yes.
So it's kind of difficult to tone it down.
Right.
So she has to give me a little slack here.
You're doing better. You're doing better.
I'm not sure if it's her that.
Okay.
Okay.
Richard, do we have another one there?
Oh, I have another one. Actually, I'm going to do this one. We just got this. Someone just sent this one in a couple of minutes ago. It says, "What does a husband do when the wife says, 'If you don't know, I won't tell you'?" And I can identify with that one.
Oh yeah.
Who is saying that? The wife is
The
saying
wife
that?
is saying, "Well, if you don't know, I won't tell you." In other words, the wife is upset. The husband
doesn't
sees that
read her
she's
mind.
upset, and he says, "Well, what's the matter? What's the problem? What did I do?" And she says, "Well, if you don't know, I won't tell you."
All right. I have had that experience myself, so I can identify
That's a
with
good.
that.
I think that speaks for all married men.
Ah, there you go. Yeah. Well, what is happening is simply this: that your husband cannot read your mind.
Yep.
So if you have an issue sit him down and just say, listen, love, I would like to talk to you for a moment. And you share that thing that is bothering you with your spouse. Hold his hand, let him know you love him, and say, listen, this bothers me a little bit here. And then he's in a position now to do something about it. But if you keep it a secret and you expect him to figure it out, as many women do, I know sometimes, they do, think the spouse should just know how they feel and so on.
Right.
You may miss the mark. And if you miss the mark, she may still be annoyed, even if you tried. I could tell you, in my seminar, I give an illustration about that. And I don't think we're going to take the time now to do that. But basically, your husband doesn't read minds.
No.
So it's difficult for him to figure it out unless you share it with him.
Well, I want to hear from Sister Sams. What's her opinion of that? Have you ever said that or made that comment?
Yes. My husband, I always say that you're a mind reader, so you should know what I'm thinking, and so you should be able to guess that. But you're absolutely right. If I don't say what's exactly on my mind and how I'm feeling, then it's unfair to try to, get him to guess what's going on with me emotionally in whatever capacity that is.
Right.
So.
Okay. I have another question here. This is a more serious question, and it goes to intimacy. So all of you who are listening, who have your children next to you may want to cover their ears for a couple seconds. It says, "Sir, I've been married for 8 years now. The first 2 years of our marriage was okay when it comes to intimacy. I have to hope, pray, and beg for my wife to have sex with me. I am a little overweight, but I'm working on that. I do not want to turn to porn for fulfillment because I know that is wrong. Furthermore, I recently got baptized in my wife's church. I need some help. I do not want to cheat. I do not want to cheat."
Okay, I have a basic concept on which I wrote my second book called Paradigms of Marriage. And that concept, the reason it's called Paradigms of Marriage, the word paradigms there means an illustration, basic framework. And in it, I want you to visualize what I'm saying now. When you get married, you are on cloud nine, as they call it, or you're on the highest level of excitement. All right? If you've been to a wedding, you know what I'm talking about. It's everybody's decorated up and celebrating, and you are excited.
Yes.
Right? And so you go on the honeymoon, and they call it a honeymoon for a reason, because, they think it's a great thing you're going to enjoy.
Honey and the moon.
Exactly. But you're up in the moon, right? Oh. So now you have to come down to earth.
Oh, wow.
When you come down to earth, and so I want you to visualize what I'm saying right now. If you draw a line perpendicular from up coming down, and then horizontal at the bottom, when you come down, you're going to land back on earth. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Therefore, you're going to either move, you're not going to stay in one position. You're going to move either to the right or to the left.
Right.
Just let's assume on the left, the end of the left of the line is a pit. And at the end of the other line, which is to the right, is paradise.
Okay.
When you hit the ground, you're going to start to move either towards the pit or towards paradise.
Right.
You can't stay still.
Yes.
Now, one of the things is that what we have discovered scientifically is that there are certain behaviors that lead you towards the left.
Towards the left.
And
Okay.
certain behaviors that lead you toward the right.
Okay.
If you don't learn what they are, there are about 10 of them. If you don't learn what they are, you are left to just struggle and figure it out.
Or lean to the left.
Yeah, well, you may start going to the left, you figure out something, you start going back to the right, and you are confused. Like most men, I was confused. One of my books, I wrote how difficult it was for me in my middle years of marriage. So, what I'm going to say to you in answering that question is simply this, that when you start out in that relationship, you first need to set some basic concepts of how you're going to relate together. And make sure that you understand each other's needs. You have to make sure you do that, because if you don't know what your spouse's needs are, then you'll not be able to meet them. If you are not going to meet your spouse's needs, your spouse is going to be unhappy. And in one of my seminars, I present those needs in a list, and there are, I think, 7 basic ones between men and women. They're not necessarily the same.
Okay.
All right? And I put them in priority order from top to bottom. What's most important. And maybe in another situation, I may try to share with you what those are, and then say, how do we rate them? Now, for me, when I rated mine, sex came second on that list.
Okay.
About my wife at the time, where do you come on that list? Let me go with this wife I have beside me. For her, sex may be like, let me answer for her. Sex, I better not.
You better not.
I better not. Okay, you're not going to
It
embarrass her.
definitely is not second.
Okay.
No first.
That answer is good. So we'll settle for that answer, right? Okay, so I know now where my wife is on that list.
Okay.
So I have to negotiate the difference. Yeah, remember I said earlier, in this marriage today where man and woman are the same, you have the same power in the home, the same, sometimes in some cases the wife works more than the man, gets more money.
Exactly.
And money is power, you know?
Yes.
So here we are, that if you don't know what your spouse needs and don't try to negotiate a basis for it, you are left in the cold.
Wow.
And you're going to have a spouse now that's going to start to satisfy that need someplace else. So if you want a successful marriage, I would say to that young man that is saying 2 years and things are getting bad, both of them need to sit down and negotiate that. She may be down like a 7 on that list of 7, and she at the bottom of the 7. He may be at the top of the 7, right?
Okay.
So they need to sit down and say, this is where I am. I'd like to have sex like the average in the United States, which is twice a week.
Twice a week?
Yes, that's the average.
That's the average?
Yes, in the United States.
Okay.
Between 2 and 3 times a week, but I put it at 2 because I can't say 2.5 times a week because you don't have half a sex.
All right.
But it's...
just go ahead and repeat what you said a while ago.
Okay.
How many times a week?
Yeah. What I'm saying is the average in the United States, the average in the United States is twice a week.
Okay.
Between 2 and 3 times a week,
Okay.
but I put that twice a week. All right, that's the average.
So we have 7 days in the week, right?
Yes, we have 7 days in the week.
So practically every other day would work out to be...
No, not that bad. We have it's only 3 days or so. So that's the average, right?
Okay.
But each couple has to sit now and decide what's comfortable for you.
Right.
Because if one wants to have sex and the other one doesn't want to have it, then there's a divide there. You lose intimacy and contact.
Okay.
So that other spouse that's not getting sufficiently satisfied going to start to look for alternative to satisfy that need, because that's a basic need that person has.
Okay.
So what are you going to do? And the Bible itself tells you in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 that a wife body does not belong to her. It belongs to her husband.
Okay.
And the husband's body does not belong to him.
You can stop right there.
Okay. So you can't just say, look, this is my body and I can do what I want with it. That's what the tendency is in this present style of marriage, partnership marriage. Women are beginning to feel, well, this is my body. Like how men used to feel that way before.
Right.
But now you're sharing. So you have to definitely start to share. I don't know if I answered that fully for you, Richard, but
I believe you do. I mean, he gotta sit with his wife and talk, because they're on 2 different levels.
Yes,
as you said first.
definitely 2 different.
But Richard, before you go into the next one, I think there's some more on there which deal with intimacy as well. So let's take a short break and then we'll come back and deal with that. You're in tune to TCVFM, your family-friendly Christian station. Stay tuned. We're here talking about marriage with Dr. Robert Sams, his wife, and his son Richard, and yours truly, Omar. So we're back. We're here talking about marriage. And Richard, you have another question that you want to read. Hold on a second. Just go right into it.
Okay, so I have another pretty serious question. So those parents out there who have not already sent their kids to watch VeggieTales, now might be a good time. Okay, here we go. It says, 6 months ago, I found out that my wife cheated on me. I confronted her and she admitted it. It broke my heart. Things haven't been the same since. I do not feel like having sex with her or even touching her. I have not said anything to my family or friends. I don't know if I wanted to say because it was so embarrassing. I do not want to throw 18 years of marriage away. The hardest part of all is that I have to work with this guy. Oh, that's serious. My wife cuts off all contacts with me. I'm hurting badly. Should I break the silence and tell our friends and family? She begged me not to.
I did have a case like that some time ago in my counseling, and that I can think of right now. And it is a very challenging thing that you are facing right now. It is difficult to tell you exactly what to do because you will know in the end what you should do. However, let me just give a little background before I try to attempt an answer. What I would like to say to you is that there are two things that should be considered in a relationship up front. And one of them is secrecy, and the other is privacy. Secrecy should be minimal in your relationship, and privacy should be something that you value. In other words, both of you should have your privacy, should be preserved. Your privacy should be preserved. You have your own cell phone, it's yours. You have your little space in the home, it's your little space. Privacy should be valued. You should not invade your spouse's privacy. But anything that you are doing or thinking or whatever it is that you know if your spouse finds out will injure the relationship, I would recommend that you avoid that. Now, what happens if you happen to make a mistake and you have a relationship with someone else? And, you didn't say whether it was deliberate, it was ongoing, or it was one-sided. So it's difficult to answer it from that point of view. But let me attempt to say that what has happened is simply this. If someone makes a mistake having sex with someone other than their spouse, and they find that it's becoming a problem, obviously, they should share it with their spouse. Because if you don't, that would be secrecy. You're keeping a secret from your spouse, and if it's found out, it could damage the relationship.
Right.
Now, the best thing to do, it's already a bad situation. So if you tell your spouse about it as gracefully as you can and ask for forgiveness, then that relationship may likely survive.
Okay.
However, if the person finds out about it, then that trust is broken and damaged to a point where it may never recover. Now, if you're a Christian or you find yourself a person who can forgive, that may be the best option for you. And when you forgive, you should not bring it up. Every little thing happens, you bring it up, because then that only further damages the relationship. The wiser thing to do is to take your spouse, sit with your spouse at a time when you're not interrupted by the children or by any phone calls coming in, and decide to talk it over together.
Okay.
Hold your spouse's hand. Make sure you are touching each other physically when you do that. It's called, intimacy. You're setting the stage for intimacy.
And I'm not cutting you, but I believe there's a question in there as well, Richard, that says family members.
Yes, I'm going to come to that.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to come to that.
Okay.
No, you cannot do anything that will violate your spouse's wishes.
Okay.
Unless it will enhance the relationship. And certainly if you share that with other family members, it's going to damage the relationship. Most likely will. Now, if you want to seek counsel from a parent or somebody completely trusted, you may want to ask your spouse permission to do that.
Okay.
But I would not advise you to go and share it with anybody else unless your spouse is aware of that. It may damage the relationship further. That would be my opinion on that.
Okay.
Well, I actually have a follow-up question about that. I think a lot of relationships have this.
I'm
this
sorry,
issue.
Richard. Can you just start over again?
Okay. I think this is actually a pretty prevalent issue among relationships or couples where each spouse confides in certain other family members the most intimate details about the relationship. Generally speaking, what's the advisability of a spouse confiding in a family member about secrets or intimate aspects of your relationship?
Okay, well, the thing about it is when I started to answer the question in the first place, I mentioned that I can think of one other incident like that in my counseling, and that ended very badly. Well, I wouldn't say it ended. I didn't follow it through to the end, but I did notice that the wife found out that the husband mentioned it to her sister.
Wow.
And she didn't want to have anything to do with him after that. He had to go struggle to repair that because then it wounds her. So it wounds the whole relationship further. So my advice would be, don't take anything out of the relationship unless your spouse is aware of it. Or you think you need that help to make your situation better in the intimacy of your relationship.
Well, you may always think that it might help the relationship if you get advice from, say, your parent.
Avoid it like the plague, unless both of you are aware that that's what's happening.
I see.
In other words, don't just go and seek for your mother to get advice from your mother if it's something that has to do with your wife.
Okay.
Privacy. If it's something general, it's fine. I'm just talking about when it comes to that level of privacy. I would have suggested to you to avoid it because it may come back up to bite you later.
What if your wife is sitting there in the room and you're complaining about stuff, even if you're making a joke out of it, but you're complaining about your wife, what she does?
That's worse. That is even worse. You really don't want to put down your wife before your parent or anybody else.
Okay.
Neither in a joke or otherwise. You are better off avoiding that because you're going to find that she will resent it internally. And then you may have another issue to try to resolve that later.
And that 7 that she was now went down to 14.
Exactly.
Yeah. Actually, going back to one of the things you were talking about earlier when we were talking about intimacy, one thing I heard, and it might have been, I think it was from you, is that each spouse goes on cycles in terms of their level of libido or feelings of intimacy.
Yes.
And so each spouse has their own cycle up and down, which is a normal thing.
Right.
And they don't always coincide.
Right.
Can you expand on that?
Oh, wow. That will take me a little while on some creativity to be able to share that on a radio. Okay, but I'll try. I know that you have requested it. All right, I want you to think about, or maybe if you have a sheet of paper before you and a pencil nearby, I'd like you to do this for me. What I'd like you to do is to draw a line at the bottom, horizontal line at the bottom of the page, whatever length, doesn't matter. And then I would like you to start to draw a graph and call that men. If you have two colors of a crayon or something, that'd even be better so you can see. But in man, I want you to go up, spike it, and come down sharply, up and come down. When you come down and touch the line and go back up and come back down. Do that for about 4 up and down on that line. Try and do that for me, please. All right. Now I want you to take another color or the same pen if you don't have another color. And I'd like you to start at the beginning of that line and go up sharply to the top of the peak of the lines that you drew before. And go right around over them and land gradually from the middle, you're going down until you touch the other end of the line.
I think this is going to be very difficult for people to follow.
All right. Well, all you're doing, though, is drawing like a dome. You start at one end, go up in the air, cover the tops of the other lines that you're drawn, come right over them and end up back on the other end of the line. And you can come across those when you're coming down. So don't go completely over, come across. All right, you can't do it mentally. Let me try to explain it to you.
All right.
Let me explain to you this way then. Those in the studio here are having trouble.
Yeah, I just tried to map that out, and I think I created a very interesting piece of artwork. I describe it as abstract art.
Okay, abstract art. All right, let me explain it to you then and see if that will help a little better. Because in my seminars, I present it on the PowerPoint and the screen. What happens is, by the way, a little background to that, is I learned this when I was a young man, just about to get married for the first time. I was 24, and I had no experience at this. And the doctor that, I had to get a medical certificate in the state of Michigan before I could get married, and the doctor volunteered to counsel me, and he told me about this. And later on, I studied it further and realized how valuable it is. What happens is that men and women have a different graph when it comes on to the emotional cycle. And you may imagine that in your mind right now as a woman's monthly cycle. So she's at one end and she goes all the way up in a kind of a dome, and she falls gradually, and she comes back down to the other end of that graph. Now, at the other end of that line that you're drawn. So just imagine it in your mind. It's like a dome. But the man is spiking all the time. He's spiking up and down, up and down. When he comes down lower than the woman does. She comes down, but she doesn't actually touch the line. She comes down and goes back up gradually. So for a woman, she's a gradual up and down in a monthly flow of her emotions.
Okay.
A man is always spiking up and down. That's why, because he's so visual, that's why it's easier for him to see a woman walking down the street and imagine right away he's excited. I don't mean excited sexually, but I mean just emotionally, right? And so, whereas a woman does not get excited as quickly. So, the man is always spiking up and down. What this means is, Richard, as you asked that question, what it means is that when the woman is up at the peak of her peak of emotion, the man may be down at the bottom of his peak. And when he has risen again to the peak, she may be falling on the other side of her peak. So what is happening in the emotion is that men and women are constantly in this tug of war of emotion. And they don't even know. It's their biology that they are struggling with when they are quarreling or being upset. Or one wants to have sex and the other one doesn't. They're actually quarreling with their biology.
I see.
The woman may want to,
right,
but she's at the bottom of her emotional curve.
Right.
And you may be excited because you're on top of yours.
Right. Mm-hmm. So sometimes when you may, as a man, take it personally, is not really personal, it's just biology.
It's biology. You're fighting, and there are many other dynamics taking place in the body as well. That's why I said, if you want a successful marriage, you have to learn these things. Mm-hmm. If you don't, you're at a disadvantage.
Wow.
Because your biology may be against you and you don't even know it. Okay, so that's only one of the many things that you need to learn.
Okay. I don't know if you want to do this one last question. This relates more to premarital issues, and I'll let Sister Sams read it.
Okay. Hi, I'm not married, but I hope to as soon as I finish college. I'm only 21, and I have been dating my boyfriend for the past 5 years. I am still a virgin, but my boyfriend keeps pressuring me to have sex. I talked to my dad about it, and he said I should leave him, but I love him. I don't want to leave him, but I'm afraid I'm going to give in to his demands. Please don't say my name.
All right. No, that's certainly, that privacy should be preserved, of course. Yes. Now, there are many answers to that question. And let me see if I can approach one or two of them to help you to get the picture a little clearer. First of all, a man relates to intimacy different from a woman biologically and I'd say psychologically too. Because for a man, sex is a fulfillment of his intimacy. For a woman, it is the very opposite.
Okay.
She is not necessarily fulfilled by sex.
Mm-hmm.
She is fulfilled by what you do within the intimacy.
Okay.
So if you are both trying to be fulfilled, your fulfillment will come in different ways. So for that boy that wants to have sex, to him, it's a way of showing his love for you. Because his fulfillment of intimacy is in sex.
Okay.
Whereas for you, sex is not necessarily your fulfillment. You want another form of intimacy.
You're not talking about Omar personally.
Oh, no. I'm not talking about him.
Just want to clarify.
I'm not talking about anyone in particular here. Let's see if we can get this straight. So, if he wants to have sex, it's natural. Because a man wants to be fulfilled in that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he expresses his love for his wife.
So what are you saying about the father? Because the father is saying, you know what, you got to leave that guy alone. I'm
coming to that.
Okay.
I did tell you it's complex, right? It's not a simple answer.
Right.
It's a complex answer.
Take your time.
I'm just giving you the biology.
Okay.
All right? However, if I were to go psychological now, a man is more focused. For a man, relationship is more focused on sex because for him, that's where he expresses love. For the woman, though, she's eros. It is a total package.
Okay.
It's how you speak to her, your voice, what you do, you give her flowers or what you do. She is more intimate with you in that way. So therefore, you have to understand that you can't give in to just your feeling here. Mm-hmm. This is a principle thing. And another thing I have that it's difficult to share it with you on the radio.
Okay.
And I may have to think of how I'm going to do this for you. But there are 5 steps that you have to take if you really want to have a successful relationship before you're married. There are 5 basic steps. And touching is a 5th.
Oh.
In that, this was done by a psychologist who studied this for 10 years. And he concluded that there are 5 steps. And the last one is touching. Mm-hmm. And you have to do some other steps in between. You have to trust, and I'm not going to go through the.
Right.
I'm just trying to give you an idea.
That's another program.
It's another program. So I just want to give you an idea that you have to go to the other steps to build towards touching.
Okay.
You can't touch at the beginning. If you start by touching, you have violated that basic process towards a fulfilled relationship. Touching has to be last. Okay. And that's why it's best to wait until marriage.
Right.
So he may want to have it because he thinks he loves you and that's what he wants. But if you go ahead prematurely, you have skipped some steps that you haven't gone through.
It's going to cause trouble down the road.
It will be causing trouble down the road in many ways.
Yes.
In many ways. So don't feel that you have to give in because you have to follow that process. You have to find out who the person is really. And you can't find out right away. It will take time. You have to give time. And you have to spend time figuring out the person in a real way, not just looking in the eyes and speaking nice things. And, you need to find, who is this person I'm dealing with? Can I live with their weaknesses? Can I live with this person's weaknesses? Can I live with some of their faults? Can I, that's what you need to be discovering, not having sex. Sex is the last thing in that series, and that's why it shouldn't come before marriage.
All right. Well, Dr. Sams, we appreciate you sharing that valuable information, and Sister Sams, that valuable information with us. And we hope if Omar allows us back that we can do some more informational programs like this and more call-in programs. And Omar, I hope that you were satisfied with our presentation.
Oh, yes.
And we are glad that we're able to address some of your issues and questions.
Some of my issues. not my issues. Some of our listeners out there who,
Yeah, that's right. Listeners.
who are struggling a little bit with that. And those are some good questions.
Very definitely.
And I see why they didn't want to call in they rather just send us an email and let us address it like that. Because it's very personal and very sensitive as well to do with that. And
we got some other, but we got some other emails. We just didn't have time to go through all of them. But maybe next time.
Could I just make one more point? You have time for just one more point I want to make. What I've discovered in this process of marriage education is that men think that they know everything. And that includes me.
yes.
That's why
Yes.
I had the trouble I had until I figured it out. Okay?
Right.
We just feel all we have to do is find a pretty girl and marry.
I am still trying to figure it out.
Still trying to figure it out. We just find a pretty girl, marry her, and we know everything to do.
Right.
That's the biggest mistake a man could make.
Wow.
Because especially in this very present environment, he's over his head and he doesn't know it. I was even a marriage counselor.
You're talking to me now.
Oh, there you go. So
No, I'm just joking.
well, I'm talking to myself as well because I went through that. That's what I outlined in my first book because I outlined my whole story of relationship. So I'm saying men normally do not want to talk about marriage as though they want to learn anything.
Okay.
And that's the biggest mistake they could make. I challenge men when I go into a situation where I want to invite them to a seminar. They don't want to come because they don't think they're going to learn anything. So I challenge them and say, I put it to you. If you come to my seminar and you don't learn anything, let me know.
Right.
Nobody has said that to me yet. Because you come to my seminar, you realize there's a lot for the man to learn. The woman knows she needs help.
Right.
Oftentimes.
And
But that man doesn't want to listen. Maybe on the radio here, if you should find out whether there are men on the radio right now.
I know men are listening now.
Men are listening?
I know that, and I see this with men as well, that we don't want to talk and open up as women would in that sense. And it's good what Richard is doing with the men's ministry. We get together, we kind of talk, we kind of come together in a sense where we are comfortable with everyone around us so we can open up, we can talk, because and this is very dear to me because I've lost friends. I mean, I can say close friends, probably 3 within the last 7 years who have ended up in divorce. And that is something that I don't want to happen again to any of my friends. And it's at the point where when they want to talk about it is like right at the end when it's too late. When the horse, as they would say, the horse already gone through the gate. And I would encourage men just to find someone. If you can't, if you don't want to put your business out there, just find someone who you can confide in and just talk with them, just on a different level. Find someone who you can trust, because I don't understand why. Because I thought my friends could trust me because I would never say anything to anyone else when they say to me. But I believe it comes down to pride as well. You are saying this. They see you and your wife, and they believe that things are going well and all of that, and beneath they're struggling, but they don't want to bring it to the surface because they're, I wouldn't say ashamed, but I believe pride does have something to do with it. In which they don't want to say, you know what, man, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to have a relationship. I don't know how to keep a wife in that sense. And let me say this. This happened to me this week, and I know probably the guy's listening because I gave him my card, and I said, listen to the radio, and he said he will. I went to his house, and it was a good brother. He was a little bit depressed because of a woman issue. And we talk, the first 5 minutes into our conversation, I was praying. I was saying, Lord, help this guy, lift him up, do something. But afterwards, he kind of come around and he kind of talked to me. And what he said to me at the end of the conversation, Doc, is this. He said, moments before I knocked on that door, he was going upstairs to say his prayers. And that kind of break me a little bit when he said that, because I know if God didn't send me there, I would lost a brother in that sense. And he said moments before I knock on that door, he was going upstairs. He already made up his mind. He was going upstairs and he's going to say his prayers, and that was it. And I've seen too many of these. I've seen so many of them that I know he was for real. And I know when someone is bluffing from when someone is serious. And at the end of the day, I thank God we talk about spiritual stuff. And another family member came over and they went out to have dinner and go to the park, which was good because I didn't want to leave him there by himself. But that is what men are faced with. Men are faced with some challenges, some difficult things when it comes to women. I know your wife is the only lady inside the studio, but sometimes we it's like we give. My sister used to say, "I wear my heart on my sleeve." We give our all, and when we give it. And because he was saying to me, you know what? I decided, I've already made up my mind that this is the woman I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. I wasn't thinking anything else. This was the woman that, we were going to grow old in that sense. And then this bombshell dropped and he didn't know how to handle it. And that is why, especially I come in, Richard, as well, to have with our men's ministry. Sometimes we don't want to talk about things that's going on, but sometimes it's good just to press a little bit, just to press and say, man, come on, talk to me. Let me know what's going on. You don't have to share it with the entire church, but, you can talk to me if it's nothing. And that's why we have if we see a brother miss church twice in a row, that's a red flag. There's something that he's going through. It doesn't have to be with his wife. It could be something else. But those are clues or cues that we should take to make sure that we're on top of it. Any brother you see doesn't come to church within a few weeks, there's something wrong. He used to come to church every Sabbath or every Sunday, and he doesn't. There's something wrong in that, and we need to check up on him and make sure. And sometimes you will call and they will say, no, man, I'm good. And they're good at putting on, I'm telling you, we're good at,
men are good at that.
Putting on a face and pretending as if everything is all right.
Yeah.
But, sometimes when it comes down to the wire, it's a breaking point and we have to open up, Richard.
I agree.
We have to let others know that they can trust us.
I agree.
We have to know that they can talk to us and they can come to us if they're going through anything, and know that if they say something to me, you're not going to hear about it. You're not going to tell your wife. The church is not going to know their business, because sometimes that's what we're afraid of. We don't want it out there because we believe that we are men and we are a leader. We are in charge.
Right.
And the moment that we are showing weakness in that sense, because that's what we look at it as, weakness, we don't, it's like we can't let people see it. We can't let them see that we're failing in this area. But we fail. I mean, everyone fails. The thing is about it, we have to learn from that incident, and the next one we'll be able to handle it much better. Right, Doc?
Yes, I do 10 two-hour seminars, and the last one is called Spirituality. And in that seminar, I try to show the role of man's role and woman's role.
Right.
And what you're saying touches on that, because roles have changed in our society now, as I said at the beginning. And so the man doesn't really know how to deal with the situation he's facing. He may marry a wife that appears to be very loving and friendly and submissive, or whatever it is the words may be.
Right.
But the society pushes her, either gently or or strongly towards the opposite, and then all of a sudden he doesn't know how to respond to that.
Right.
And he's lost. And he's struggling to find his bearing. And the longer the marriage continues, sometimes the worse it gets. So he needs to understand that there are some dynamics at play, that he can use some strategies to deal with them and get back his footing.
Okay.
And that's what I usually do in my
I think what
seminars.
Omar was also referring to is that sometimes the man also just needs, he's in a dark place and he needs some another brother to, as they say,
Absolutely.
iron sharpeneth iron.
Absolutely.
Need another brother to lean on, or to reach out and to be a listening ear. And I guess, Omar, that comes from developing trust over some time.
Yes.
Where that person is willing to confide in you. So I guess we all have a responsibility to our brothers.
Yeah, we do. And you have a big one as well as the men's ministry leader.
Right.
So you have to you just sometimes you have to just get them one-to-one. Just talk to them and just let them know that you're there. It doesn't matter what they're going through. It doesn't matter how small it is, because small things, that's what turns into big things.
Right.
So Richard, it's your turn to wrap it up.
Oh, wow. Well, we talked, Dr. Sam just talked about the role of a man and the role of a woman, or the role of a wife and the role of a husband. There's also the role of our Lord and Savior, Jesus, who obviously is the ultimate brother that's closer than a brother, that we can always turn to or lean on. And as we go into the Sabbath, and I know at Shiloh we're having communion tomorrow.
Yep.
It's going to be a time of rejuvenation, and hopefully some of us who are hurting can use that as an excellent time to rejuvenate spiritually and also physically. So I'm wishing everyone out there in the audience, we went over time somewhat, but I'm wishing everyone out there a happy Sabbath, safe and happy weekend, and until we meet again.
God bless you.
God bless you.